did go and clear out. I did go out and clear all the stuff in Zoom because we had
Okay.
exceeded the um, amount we can do. And I uploaded everything that was there. It was 15 podcasts, I think, into
Oh, okay.
Dropbox, into a separate Dropbox so that we could have it.
Mhm.
I'm hoping Dropbox never goes out of.
I know. I know. Yeah. Yeah.
But at least we'll have it and we
Mhm.
can go with it. So that's always good.
Absolutely. Okay.
All
Yeah.
right.
No, that's great. Okay. Shall we get into it, Denise?
Yeah, I think so. Ready? You know the drill. 5, 4. Well, that, and I want us to have a little bit more dialogue around this one because I liked where we
Oh,
were
yeah.
in the beginning. So I want to have a little bit of dialogue around this. So we might do
That
this
sounds
one.
good. Mhm. Is your Alexa on in the background?
Yeah, I'm gonna call you Miss Greer. Miss Greer,
So formal. Hello.
Miss Greer. I got an A Greer here.
The anonymity. I could be anyone, Denise.
On both ends.
Mm-hmm.
On both
The
ends.
mystique. It's the
Eh,
weekend.
Hey, that's what day is about, right? Is showing up the way you want to show up, and you ought to have the ability to decide how you feel and how you want to show up. So today you're they, but
Mhm.
tomorrow you might feel like being a he or a she or none of the above.
Mm. So many
So
kinds of people in the world, Denise.
well, it's not. I mean, it's that, and in many ways, it's also the struggle people of color have of, if you're going to be in the corporate space, then who am I showing up as? I remember when I went away to college, and I went to South Dakota to college, right? Augustana, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and born and raised in Chicago. My family's from the South, kind of thing. So I remember when I came back home from school, and I was really excited, first year, really excited, talking about all the classes, what's going on. And my grandmother, was Thanksgiving, and she just leaned over in this really loving way and went, "Baby, you're not with them. You can talk like us now."
Aw.
And it was kind of like, "What you talking about? Hey, Nana, I'm yeah, baby, it's okay." And she went on and taught me some, dressing. But that story has stuck with me, and it reminds me, we say a lot of times we say, define yourself, whether you're, you know, particularly in this idea of gender identity, gender selection, etc., and how it's kind of superseded who we are as a person. But it's no different than any group that's really marginalized or not part of the main. And I'm not even sure, because I've never been part of the main, so I can't speak for them. I'm not sure that they don't have the same wrestlings out of it of, who do I want to show up to be today? Am I my black self? Am I my hood self? Am I my, black girl self? Am I my wise woman? Am I my white integrationist self, assimilation self? Am I trying to be the caregiver? Am I trying to be, the authoritarian, the thought leader, the who am I in this role? And the reality is that we are all of those things. And sometimes we're all of those things at one time. Some blend of it. And so this idea of constantly trying to separate out, separate out, I I I think it's got to be taxing on everybody, because it's taxing on me. And the only privilege in it is some people just don't have to think about it as much as other people. But I also asked the question, what if I didn't think about it? What if, I didn't have that tape in my head of my grandmother saying, "Baby, you're with us now." what if she could have just accepted me, that I was an evolving individual and I had a new self, a piece of myself to show up? How would that have changed what I carried forward in my life? So, at any rate, guys, obviously we've already started the podcast, as you can hear. This is what we do when we're not on the tape and we're not with you. We talk about topics just like that. But I want to welcome you today to our question and answer forum. This is the Remarkable Leadership Network, Remarkable Leaders Network, excuse me. So it's a place where you can come and be safe to explore the multitude of ways in which you can show up, and how do you make the best choices on how to show up, and how do you handle people or handle interactions, not necessarily people or culture, that sometimes don't support you being your full self. And asking the question, is it right to give all of you to everyone? Brene Brown would say, you know, for your own protection, but also for your own realization, your full self is only reserved for those who have demonstrated that they deserve to see your full self. So isn't that an interesting question? Who in your life deserves to see and to be with, to experience your full self? Ooh.
Oh, I have chills, Denise. Oh my gosh.
All right, guys. As always, it's the dynamic duo, Ms. Greer and Ms.
Hello,
Cooper.
everybody.
And we are here. We've got some questions. Today, we actually decided to flip the script a little bit. And I know we've got some folks in the audience who want to send questions. Please, we continue to ask you to go ahead and do this. But I want to remind you that this is a safe place where you can come and ask any question that you want. Don't worry about asking it right. That's what Ms. Greer and I are here for. To make sure that it comes across and it sounds like something that can be received by everybody, not just in the room or in this virtual room that we're in, but also the people who are listening. And then ultimately that we can turn our questions, our ponderings, our wondering through the world into actionable items that move us from compliance. We do what we have to do, to commitment, and commitment is changing our behavior, changing our thinking, to live our best life, to feel chills every day, knowing that we
Yes.
are fully engaged. So,
Oh.
let's see.
Shall we get into it, Denise?
I think so. How do you want to start this
Wonderful.
one? Because these
Yeah,
three
I mean,
questions are different.
100%. And I mean, that first piece that our audience kind of heard us talking about just now has to do with this first question. We had somebody write in and they write, I recently started a job with a new company, and a lot of company messaging focuses on being authentic at work. What does this look like? Do they really want me to come to work talking about my home life and my past experiences? Or are they just saying this to encourage people to stay at the company?
Mm. You know
What
what?
do
Why
you
don't you
think,
go ahead and read
Denise?
all three of the questions, because I want to answer it from a higher plane, and I want you and I to have a
Okay.
kind of a different discussion than we normally do.
Yeah, absolutely. This next one is, I think it's from the same person.
Mhm.
So similarly, how much should I be telling my boss or people who have the power to promote me about me?
Mm.
And then lastly, we have somebody who writes in and says, recently, my boss has been asking me to stay after hours multiple times a week, sometimes going as late as 10 p.m. Even on days I work from home, I'll regularly be doing work from home. What does that mean? I assume that means Once you're home, they have you doing work from home, is what I
Yeah,
would take that to
probably.
mean.
Yeah.
I'm in a salary position. I thought the whole point was that I would have a predictable schedule. How can I set boundaries around my time with an unreasonable boss?
Yeah. I think there are a lot of people struggling with this one. These three facets of this question here. And they all, in my mind, and I could be wrong, but not having the person here to be able to actually coach them through what it is that they mean and what is clarity for them. I'm going to infer some things. Excuse me. I'm going to infer some things out of this. So one of them is about boundaries, and the other is about being authentic in the workplace. And boundaries are interesting because oftentimes we're not really good at or clear about what our boundaries look like. So let's take, for example, this third person, add a story, our third question, add some story around it. Suddenly the boss has changed their behavior. It's asking you to stay late multiple times a week, as late as 10 o'clock, or to work from home when normally you didn't have to. But this person
Mhm.
has an expectation that they would have a predictable schedule, and now they think their boss is being unreasonable. Well, that's kind of a boundary question. Is it unreasonable for
Yeah.
your boss to ask you to get work done? No. Is it unreasonable for you to ask or to have a dialogue with your boss that says, what's the biggest priority? And this is how long work is taking me. This is way outside of our agreement or our comfort zone. We need to talk about this. The
Mhm.
question, the way it's worded, assumes that the boss knows that you're working till 10 p.m. It also
Sure.
assumes that the boss knows what you're working on. And that if you had simply, I've been in situations where I've coached clients to, why don't you just go back and confirm what exactly it is that the boss wants? What's the minimum standard? What's the kind of, you know, expectation, and what would be outstanding? Because what you don't know, or what does it sound like from this, and in the case of a couple of clients, they didn't really understand what good work meant from the perspective of their boss.
Mhm.
And when they did go back, in each case, the boss said, "Oh my God, you're doing that? No, you could have cut this out, cut that out, done this, done that, done this. You got to let me know, what
Mhm.
were you working on? I could have navigated some other things." So
Mhm.
this is, in my mind, an example of where we take a behavior, and instead of being curious about it, asking, okay, so what is it that you mean? What is it that you want? What's the expectation being set here? We take it in, and we continue down the path of, I've always done it this way, so I'm going to continue to do it this way because I know and I
Mm.
can read the mind of the other person. So I know this is what they want.
Mhm.
I'm out of it. And so for that particular person, it's really about what changed in your boss's behavior that's causing your boss to suddenly ask you, multiple times during the week to work late or to work on extra projects. And you don't know. This could be a very short term, I need you to crunch this out, in these couple of days, and then you go back to the way it was. But it feels like the person is putting a lot of energy into projecting the future to be the same as it is now versus projecting what was the past, and this is just a blip in the road. And so I
Mhm.
often I will ask people to kind of, what are your expectations, as well as what are the expectations of your boss, your supervisor, and your culture,
Mhm.
before you start jumping. The same is true about the second question. What should I tell my boss or the people in power, or have the power to promote me, about me? And that's a sharing question. Again,
Mhm.
back to boundaries, back to this mix of being authentic. And I have to tell you, I have to say, from my perspective, You can't set boundaries if you're not authentic, because
Why?
otherwise it's manipulation.
Oh, can you explain that? I hear the word manipulation and my heart's like, excuse me, hello. We got to talk about
Okay.
that.
So, I mean, manipulation in the wrong way, right?
Hmm.
So if you're not bringing your authentic self into this, and you're not setting boundaries from a place that is about who you are genuinely, then that means you're portraying someone else, and you're trying to give a picture to the other person to treat you differently. So let's make this real concrete, right? What if in there were times in the past where very light skinned African Americans could pass for white. They couldn't bring their authentic self to work. I would imagine sometimes people who are gender fluid are in the same boat.
Sure.
And so you just can't feel safe bringing that up. And so now the question becomes, you've changed who you are, you're not being authentic. And now you want this person to like you for something else. What's that something else? What's driving that
Mm,
something else? In days past, it was about safety because you literally could have been killed. I'm not sure that's not the same depending on where you work
mhm.
for those people who are more gender fluid, right? Or
Sure.
gender diverse. I had a client
Right.
who worked and lived for a company, major Fortune 100, but they worked in, you know, small town North Carolina, and she happened to be gay. She identified as gay, and she was the plant manager. And it was regular that people used the F word and um, talked about people who were gender fluid as sluts and not
Mm,
appropriate and not God fearing and an abomination. And she took it. And so when I got there and started coaching her, and then she told me the story of how this is it. And I need to come in and help her set boundaries with the people that she
mm,
worked with. I immediately relayed it back to corporate because they thought she was broke. That's why they called me in, that she wasn't, doing her best at this particular plant and that she needed to have some executive coaching when it wasn't that she needed executive coaching. What she needed was support and not
right.
having this as part of the culture that she was working in.
Right.
So I go back to this thing of how should I be telling my boss or people in power about me?
Mhm,
Well, it all depends on how safe you feel about who you are and who you
mm,
want to be all the time without thought, without worrying about, am I wearing my this hat or that hat, or can I say this or can I say that? Start with that piece. And if you're not comfortable with that piece, then you got to find a way to get comfortable with that because everything after that is inauthentic. It's a show. And when they find out, and they will, whatever the show is, imagine how they feel from a place of betrayal and distrust.
mm,
So you're actually setting yourself up for failure on the longer term.
mm. I think that's so true, Denise, especially with how digital everything is
Yeah.
now. It's like, it's only a matter of time before a person comes out and shares, like, oh, I'm queer, oh, I'm trans, like, oh, because there's all these identities, right, that aren't visible to the eye that do still matter, and I think for me as a queer person, where I sometimes shake out on it is it's like it's an important part of my identity, but I don't always know if people around me are going to see it as relevant or important information. Um, and I feel like I have support from people in my life, in my inner circle. Like I really feel good. Like it's almost neither here nor there.
Mm-hmm.
But hearing you say that, for someone who maybe finds out later down the line and like I never told them, I could see how they might feel like my trust in them was, like weak, or that like we weren't as bonded as they
Mm-hmm.
thought, or like if she kept this, I would hate that, like if she kept this from me, then like what else, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, it's not the same. um so what I'm hearing you say though is that perhaps for people like me, like even if I don't think it's relevant, other people around me may want to know me. Is
Depending
that
on
fair
the
to say?
relationship, right? It
Yeah.
depends on the relationship. So if you're at work, I can see you, a person being very comfortable, and I don't want to be known by my gender fluidity or my race or
Hmm.
my, whatever, my ability or lack of ability. I don't want to be known for that. And so I can see that as part of who you are and who you want to authentically come to work with. But you can't deny that the fact that you come from this perspective doesn't shape your thinking
Right.
and how you see the world. And so you may not overtly tell somebody about that part of yourself. However, you have to recognize that that part of yourself does set your intention and determine what behavior and how you're going to treat other individuals. And you
Mm.
may not lead with that card, but in workplaces, one of the, we've talked about it on other these podcasts, right? About there's forgiveness and then there's restitution,
Mhm.
restorativeness. And so if I didn't know you, if I thought you and I were alike and I really had a bias against the LGBTQA plus community,
Mhm.
and I made that quip and you decided, wait a minute, hey, that's not okay. And then I find out that you're not there. You're not alongside. Your thinking and my thinking are not the same. So now
Mhm.
you have to say, how am I going to handle this? And it's not, and I
Right.
don't think it's okay to back away, but that's Denise.
Mhm.
But you might decide that because you may be like this client I had in a community where it really wasn't safe for her to admit or to dig in and defend herself.
Mhm.
And
'Cause the stakes
corporate,
are so different for
yeah,
each person, I imagine.
yeah. And so the idea of authenticity and boundaries is really rooted in how you want to show up and what safe means.
Mm.
And safe is from physical safe to mental safe to spiritual safe, to heart space safe.
Right. Right.
And so you have to decide and you have to think about those things and talk about them, and you evolve as you get older of, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that, out of this. And so there's a level of what that means too. So in that,
Right.
what do I tell people? You tell people as much as you feel safe about
Mhm.
it. And it may be just a small piece of who you are. That's okay.
Right.
And if
Mhm.
it comes down the road of, hey, I didn't know that was about you. Oh, really? Well, let me tell you more. Are you interested? Are you curious?
Mhm.
And then you move into it and you deal with it then. But don't set yourself up coming from a place of fear and safety about these things. Who are you? Who do you want to be? What is relevant in this situation? If I'm talking to people who want to promote me, then what's relevant in this situation is what work do I do that demonstrates that I can succeed or exceed in the next level or the next two levels. So take it that
Right.
away. This goes
Well,
in the
something else that
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, yeah, something else that I'm hearing you say around safety is it connects to this idea of your heart space and your body as well. And it's reminding me I'm taking a course on somatics right now, and it's the hardest thing I've ever done. Um, I think we're having a somatics expert on the podcast this season,
Yeah.
and so I'm just learning so much of safety can relate back to the felt sense in your body and the ways that we can pay attention to how our body feels as we think about, like maybe I'm going to tell this person that I'm queer, or maybe I'm going to like open up a little bit about like some of my past work experiences. It's like we can feel into our body and see like, like on a spectrum, does this feel safe-ish? Like, is this like an okay zone? Maybe I start with just sharing a little bit versus sharing so
Yeah.
much that
Yeah.
just sends your body out of that state of balance, right? And so
Yes.
it's so fascinating to me, this idea that what we say does have an effect on our nervous
Yes.
system. And we can be intentional. We don't have to be secretive, Denise, but I think we can be intentional about who we are authentic with and to what degree, which is,
Yes.
I mean, really the whole point of this, right?
Yes. Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. But being intentional or not being intentional is a
Mhm.
mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what advice would you give to somebody who's like, I've never thought about this before, or, like I've never been in a workplace and been out. Like, how do you start?
Well, the first question, great lead in. I know you didn't do that on purpose. Um, but they started a new job.
Mhm.
And lots of the company messages focus on being authentic in work. What does that look like?
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's the same question. Different, you worded it differently, but it's
Mhm.
basically kind of well, what,
Yeah.
uh, how do I start? Um, I think you start with what is the situation that you're in. So if you're at a cocktail party
Mhm.
and people are sharing things about their kids and they're sharing things about their family, then you share with kids and family. You share your experiences that connect and bind us as human beings. If you happen to notice that the party is mixed, then you know there's some openness to having diversity in the room. And so
Mhm.
maybe you can talk about and you can engage in that kind of thing. If and test the waters, like you said, of I share a small
Mhm.
space. And then the last thing I always say is, why am I here? And do I really like these people? Because there's sometimes that you have to go to
Ooh.
things that I'm not gonna see these people ever again.
Mhm.
And Sabrina can come out. Okay.
Mhm. Oh, who is she? Oh.
Sabrina's coming out, y'all.
Oh my gosh. Well, I sometimes feel empowered if it's people that you're not super connected with, that you're not going to see again. Sometimes that can be an opportunity to step
Yes.
into the identity and just like, here are my cards. Either you
Yes.
like me or you don't,
Yes.
but I
I
don't know,
don't
it feels
care.
like such a good practice to have. I follow someone on TikTok, and she does, I think she calls it like her rejection practice, and she'll
Hmm.
just like go up to someone in public and like, I don't know, ask for something for free. She'll ask like a random stranger for a hug. She'll like ask to hold someone's hand, like all this stuff that it's like, no, like, and she just talks about her journey with it. And so for me, it's like that practice feels like a micro dose of this TikTokers, where it's like, yeah,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
you don't have to love me. I
Yeah.
love me. My
Yeah.
friends love me. My
Yeah.
people love me.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be okay.
Right. And what is it that you're looking for these folks? And it brings when you said that, it brings up
Yeah.
another client that I'm coaching. And what you realized was, and she's an exceptional worker. I mean, she
Hmm.
just, she had elements of all three of these, particularly the working till 10 or 12 or over the weekends,
Mhm.
etc. And I would often say, you really got to get clear about this. You don't have to be that good. You don't have to be exceptional in everything because you're burning yourself out working this hard.
Yeah.
And then she realized that the reason she was doing it, partly because her profile said that she likes tasks. She has to have a beginning, middle, and end, right? And so if she
Mhm.
doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end, then it kind of sends her into this, tizzy, this emotional tizzy of it. So she can't leave things hanging. She has to have a beginning, middle, and end, which makes her exceptionally well as a project manager and a person who delivers on the strategy consistently at the highest level. The other
Mhm.
thing that she realized was what was her motivation for doing it. And her motivation
Mhm.
for doing it was she wanted them to like her, to
Oh.
really like her, to be part of a team. And as we
Mhm.
talked, it hit her. It wasn't that I said the words, said the words, said the words, and it just
Mhm.
wasn't getting down. And then one day she came back and she was like, I think I got it. I'm like, what are you talking about? I they're never gonna like me. They're For me, this is a toxic place. Yes,
Mhm.
they appreciate the work I do. Yes, they give me money about the work. But what I need to be is with people who like me
Oh.
as much as allow me to do my work.
Mhm.
That was when she moved from
Wow.
compliance to commitment and she decided it was time to leave. And she left.
Yeah. Good for her. We're here so briefly, Denise.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
here so
yeah,
briefly.
yeah, yeah. So, for my audience today, I hope this was valuable. It's a little different than we've done in past. I love it. I hope you did too. Oh, thank you for all the hearts. Snap, snap. Appreciate
Aw.
you. Appreciate you. Um, but I want you to know we're here every month, same time, same place. Um, I hope others will join us and I hope you'll share this. Um, and, we were Mighty Networks. Now we're the Remarkable Leaders Network. And it's for
Mhm.
people who really want to embrace this idea of being a leader is not always about being over people, but it is learning how to be with people, inspire them, and have people who inspire you. If you have questions, feel free to send us email. You can catch me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at info1 at rllessons.com. And of course, all of that will be in the show notes. Next time, invite a friend or two, or just have your family listen in, because I guarantee if you share this, it will be a conversation that will generate some new remarkable leader lessons for you. And that's it, folks. Bye.